after evacuation orders in southern Beirut were issued on social media. Israeli strikes turned this multi-story building into dust. At least 5 medics have been killed as rockets continued to batter southern Lebanon and the outskirts of the capital on Friday. Israeli ground troops have also clashed with Hezbollah fighters in the south as Israel's intense military campaign against the Iran-backed armed group fails to relent. It has tempered hopes that a US envoy could reach an imminent ceasefire. A US mediator said earlier this week that a truce was within our grasp after visiting Beirut. They then travelled to meet Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu before returning to Washington, according to the news outlet Axios. Hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah escalated dramatically when Israel ramped up its strikes in late September and sent ground troops into Lebanon in October. Their troops have pushed deeper to the edges of Hayam, a town some 4 miles from the border. Lebanese security sources told Reuters Israeli troops have also advanced in a string of villages to the west. They said Israel was most likely trying to isolate Hayam ahead of a major attack on the town. Israeli strikes on 2 other villages killed a total of 5 medics from a rescue force affiliated with Hezbollah, the Lebanese health ministry said. More than 200 medics have been killed by Israeli strikes over the past year, the health ministry said. Israel says it aims to secure the return home of tens of thousands of people evacuated from Israel's north due to rocket attacks by Hezbollah, which began firing across the border in support of Hamas at the start of the Gaza war in October 2023.
Labor representatives voted for limited strikes at Volkswagen's German operations, starting in early December. The vote on Friday comes after talks over wages and plant closures failed to achieve a breakthrough. It marks a further escalation between Europe's top automaker and its workers over mass layoffs, pay cuts, and possible plant closures. Drastic measures the company cannot rule out in the face of competition from China and cooling demand. According to IG Metall, Germany's largest union, the bargaining committee voted unanimously for the strikes, the first since 2018 when over 50,000 workers took to the streets over pay. Volkswagen has demanded a 10% wage cut for German workers, while also threatening to close plants in Germany for the first time in its 87-year history. The labor action would initially be so-called warning strikes that last only hours. Union members could then vote to escalate to 24-hour strikes or longer. Talks are scheduled to continue on December 9th.
Gap shares jumped nearly 17% Friday morning after the apparel retailer lifted its annual sales forecast, with CEO Richard Dixon saying the holiday shopping season is, quote, off to a strong start. Gap experienced growth at all of its brands, including Old Navy, for the first time in almost 2 years. Its strong outlook comes after Walmart said consumers remain resilient, and it's a contrast to Target's muted sales forecast, amplifying the prospects of a mixed holiday shopping period. Dixon, who took the helm in August 2023, has pushed to revamp the in-store experience and sell at full prices, tapping into the trend of customers ready to pay more for fresh styles. The plan is working, according to one analyst, who told Reuters the retailer should end up doing less discounting of merchandise in this key holiday period. Gap forecast annual net sales to rise between 1.5% and 2%, compared with its earlier target of just slightly up. Its 2 struggling brands, Athleta and Banana Republic, posted third-quarter sales growth of 4% and 2% respectively.
A powerful atmospheric river pounded Washington state and the Pacific Northwest this week, killing at least 2 people and knocking out power to hundreds of thousands. With temperatures around the world rising, scientists say these weather systems will become larger and possibly more destructive. So what is an atmospheric river? Allison Santorelli, a meteorologist for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, breaks it down.
Atmospheric rivers are pretty much, you can think of it as like a river in the sky. So a river transports, as we know, a river transports a lot of water. And so atmospheric rivers are essentially that. just up in the sky. They're relatively long, narrow regions with significant water vapor that helps to transport moisture from the tropical areas into the mid-latitudes, which is where the United States is located.
Atmospheric rivers appear as a trail of wispy clouds that can stretch for hundreds of miles. As the water vapor in the jet stream rises, it cools and condenses, resulting in rain or snow. According to NOAA, an atmospheric river can carry 15 times the volume of the Mississippi River. Most atmospheric rivers are weak and do not cause damage. In fact, they can provide much-needed rain or snow. A 2018 research paper projected there to actually be 10% fewer atmospheric rivers in the future. But that's not necessarily a good thing. If moderate atmospheric rivers occur less frequently, it could make managing water supplies more difficult. And more bad news. The same study found that atmospheric rivers in coming years are expected to be 25% wider and longer and carry more water, potentially wreaking more havoc in vulnerable mid-latitude regions. Santorelli explains the part that rising global temperatures play in the equation.
So scientific research has shown that the climate is warming and average monthly to yearly temperatures are increasing. Now, while it's difficult to say exactly how this might impact atmospheric rivers specifically, certainly we do know that warmer air is capable of holding more water vapor. And so it's possible that a warming climate could result in stronger and more extreme weather.
In a televised address Thursday, Russian President Vladimir Putin said Moscow had launched a medium-range ballistic missile attack on a Ukrainian military facility in response to recent Ukrainian long-range strikes with Western weapons.
In combat conditions, one of the newest Russian mid-range missile systems was also tested, in this case with a ballistic missile and non-nuclear hypersonic equipment.
Kyiv said Russia used an intercontinental ballistic missile, a weapon designed for long-distance nuclear strikes and never before used in war, and that it hit the city of Dnipro. But 3 U.S. officials said it was an intermediate-range ballistic missile that has a smaller range, and one official said it was notified by Russia about the strike ahead of time. There was no suggestion it was nuclear-armed. A regional governor in Ukraine said the attack damaged an industrial enterprise and set off fires. Artem Dyomin is the acting director of a medical rehabilitation center.
Technical buildings were damaged in our compound. In the rehabilitation center building, around 50 windows were damaged. Thank God nobody was injured.
Regardless of its classification, the latest strike highlighted rapidly rising tensions in the past several days. It came after Ukraine fired U.S. and British missiles at targets inside Russia this week, after outgoing U.S. President Joe Biden gave it permission to do so, despite warnings by Moscow that it would see such action as a major escalation. President-elect Donald Trump has said he will end the war without saying how, and has criticized billions of dollars in aid for Ukraine under Biden. The warring sides believe Trump is likely to push for peace talks, not known to have been held since the war's earliest months, and are trying to attain strong positions before negotiations.